So when it comes to that buncher, um, I've got a client that's looking for some clearing work up in the mountains there. Well, specifically underneath the hydro transmission lines, and
Mhm.
obviously in the southern part of British Columbia, we got some pretty serious mountains down here. And it's fine and dandy. You can take a conventional construction hoe and put a mower on there with your triple grouser pads and weld some corks onto it, right? But it's not meant for that
Are
kind of
you
terrain.
making a mulcher buncher?
Uh
Please tell me you are.
yeah, you could, for lack of better terms, yeah, it's a buncher with it's technically not a mulcher. It's a Promac rotary general purpose 52 is what they call it. And it's got a solid steel disc.
Oh yeah, I've run a disc before.
Well, so what it is, it's a solid steel disc, but they've got knives on it. So when
Mhm.
you hit a rock, instead of it like, yeah, so when you hit a rock, it'll actually have some give to it, right?
Yeah,
Because
like a flail disc too. Like I've ran them before. That's
no,
awesome though.
yeah, a little bit different from a flail, because a flail would be kind of a horizontal drum, right? Like the
No, no,
mulch
no.
that I have for the skid steer.
Okay, I'm sorry. When it comes back, like when it's good the give you're talking about, even if it's on a disc, I think you still consider it a flail. But
I don't.
maybe I'm wrong.
I think the flail is what this is, the little like J hook style teeth that do the cutting.
On the
I,
drum, I've seen those, but when you have the disc set up and that arm's swinging out there on the disc, like that's still a flail.
is it?
Because the point of it is, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe wrong.
Hey,
Anyways, that sounds
who
awesome.
knows? I got no clue, but I know it spins around, and I don't want to get anywhere near it. How about that?
It's pretty fun when you get on a disc, but
Yeah,
that is a neat little setup. So it's just like for brushing and cleaning, then, like
yeah,
scrubbing.
yeah. It's just brushing and cleaning underneath the hydro transmission lines down on the coast here, up in the mountains. And now I was talking to my client, and this is actually something I never even knew. Now, when you look at the transmission lines through the mountains, depending on your terrain, you might have a relatively long span in between the towers.
Mm-hmm.
And in the in the summertime, when you've got more load on the grid, people running their air conditioners, blah 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 blah, and just ambient air temperature being higher in the longer spans, those lines can actually sag um, 30 to 40 feet.
What?
Yeah, this
I
is
thought
something
you were
I
gonna
had
say
no
like
clue
30
about.
to 40 inches.
No,
What?
now obviously, Jordan, that's over a longer span, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no clue that it would seriously drop that much. So when you look, when you go around right now, I was looking at the job the other day. It's wintertime, obviously, so you're thinking like, oh, there's plenty of room there. What come 6 months from now, those you're gonna have a serious problem with those lines getting close to the vegetation.
Wow. That's
And
insane.
yeah, and then I've got a skid steer. It's not a brush cutter. It's actually like a forestry mulcher. So I believe it's a Caterpillar HM415C mulching head,
Yeah.
where it runs a carbide tooth fixed to the drum. So if you hit a rock, there's no give in that setup, right?
Yeah.
Unlike the mower on the buncher, where it'll actually have some give, right? But
Yeah.
that machine goes up to the caribou, and it will do some mulching underneath the distribution lines. So the ones that run down the side of the road, and
Mhm.
not so much the transmission in the hills. That machine's way too small.
Yeah.
But
That's
you
pretty
know what?
neat.
I think we might have been talking about it this weekend. Yeah, I think we were actually. But you know, obviously, Jordan, you and myself, coming from a construction background, we're not so much loggers, right? this
Mhm.
this is my first piece of logging equipment, and just the differences in logging equipment versus just general line construction machines, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I recall you and Chase were speaking about that there, and I even see it a little bit too, just going into logging. It does change up completely, and you were talking
Well,
about some of those things.
why don't you tell us about what some of the differences are between construction and logging equipment?
So obviously the first big difference you see is that you look at my 325. The plate steel on there, maybe is half an inch, 3/4 inch thick, right? You go look at the plate steel on that buncher, and we're talking inch and a half, 2 inch thick plate steel everywhere, right? Instantly right off the bat, it's built way differently. You know, this side, I believe probably most logging equipment manufacturers do the same thing, but the whole side hood actually hydraulically opens with its own separate little electric pump.
That's so
And
nice.
it's totally opens. There's a huge area to walk around. I mean, shit, you could have set up a picnic table up there, and there's plenty of real estate, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things, and you know what? Unless you've been there, you don't know. But I'm telling you, this thing has an electric motor with a hose. You stick it into your hydraulic oil pail, or drum or whatever you got, right? And you flick on this little electric motor, and it fills the hydraulic tank for you.
That is nice, and like I said, if you haven't done it, you won't care. But if you've crawled up top to a hole with a couple pails or pumped from the ground, it's pretty handy to have that.
Well, you should have seen me when I found out, when I was sitting there, and it was half dark, and I'm looking around, looking at this thing, right, just trying to get my bearings of what's going on with it, because there's a little bit of work that needs to be done to it, little just maintenance stuff, right? And I'm trying to figure out what this pump is, right? And I see the pipe that it goes to. It runs a hydraulic hose to like a 3-foot steel pipe, and trying to figure it out. Well, it goes into the hydraulic tank. What is this? And then there's a little switch on the fuse panel inside of like the engine compartment, and ta-da!
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I'm really excited to use that feature. Let's put it that way.
Just ready to break a hydraulic line just to use that. Oh no, I got to use my new pump.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty funny. The opening of the hood one, like I know it's like some of those big cat loaders, like they'll have like hoods where you press a button and the whole hood lifts up, and like for the rear end there, and it's so nice just to be that open instead of like opening a panel here, panel there. I don't know why more equipment doesn't have that feature.
Honestly, the accessibility on this, and I know I'm going to sound like a cat fanboy, and I can see it now. I can see it happening now already. But, and like I said, I'm sure there's other manufacturers that do this as well. But there is nothing you can't get to on that thing with that hood open.
It's that good.
Honestly, I will send you a Snapchat, and you will. Okay, Matt wasn't lying.
Okay, I'll have to. I believe you.
Just back me up on this one.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Cat makes good equipment.
I believe you. I'm always in a supportive cat. I want to see if it's open as he says.
I'm a manufacturer for cat, so I'm just going to say that Caterpillar's the nicest.
Oh yeah, for legality purposes, yes.
Especially
it's
their light
brand.
towers. Caterpillar light towers, 10 out of 10.
Specifically their solar light towers. Do they have other light towers, or are they just the solar ones?
I think they just have our solar ones.
Okay.
They
So
just
all cat light towers.
I think we're the only light tower that's actually a Caterpillar branded light tower.
Okay, look at you go.
I know.
Mm-hmm. Big old work area too, and the toolbox is there. You open that hood up, big old workspace. Everything's accessible.
Oh, totally. I mean, getting up on that hood, for a big and tall gentleman like myself, it's a little bit of an ordeal. But other than that, once you're up there, you're good.
A big tall fellow. Yeah. Speaking of that, if we ever do like an Edison football team or anything, Matt, you got you're on, man.
Yeah, I wasn't much of a football guy growing up. I grew up playing hockey.
Just wrecking poor kids out there.
Yeah, I was a defenseman, so yeah, that was kind of my hobby out there.
We could chat a little bit of hockey, but I know Chase doesn't love the hockey talk.
Oh, well, let's not get into it then. It was just minor hockey. My career never went any further than that. It's okay.
Yeah, good.
Honestly, I'm working on the chassis here right now for the electric go-kart. So I've kind of missed some of the hockey talk. What do you think of the length being 100 centimeters for gas throttle pedal to back of seat? So that's about 40 inches. Does that feel about right to you?
That makes sense, but I have to see what you're looking at exactly.
Over 3 feet. Like my leg is, with my leg totally flat outright, I'm about 43 centimeters. So scooting up to about 39, puts me at a nice angle.
I'd
Are
set
you
it up for
sitting
you
down
too.
and measuring, or are you standing up?
Well, I'm sitting in a position I would be in as if I was driving a go-kart.
So
Okay, I
you
just
are
wanted to
you
clear
are
that
you
first.
well, just so people know, so they know what the conversation is. We're working on the go-kart. You're
we
in
never.
it right now.
Oh yeah. Right. Sorry, I'm just on the phone with texting the manufacturer. He wanted the thing. We're trying to make a little electric go-kart as round 2 of investment. One of the things we're going to offer is a little electric go-kart to the bigger investors.
Mhm.
So like I wanted to play around with electric throttles, controlling electric motors, and setting up these little electric things. So I'm like, you know what? Tesla offered the electric quad. Like everyone offers these little electric quad. Why don't we make a little electric 4-wheeler?
Yeah, I'm in it. Now, no, I was just giving everyone context, but now back to it. I would build it off of you. You're a pretty average sized dude, so I'd go off of your spec. Like it's most people are around your size, I'd say.
You got like a frame extension option or what for us big fellas?
Matt, you're not getting on the go kart. No, we'll build it.
Bottom it
well,
out.
I feel like 41 should be enough. If you gotta put your legs up slightly.
Yeah, I've never been in a go-kart where your legs are totally locked.
31 centimeter or 31 inches, like under 3 feet, and I'm like, oh, that's too small, my man.
That's Jordan size right there.
You're just a little guy, eh?
I'm just a little fella. Yeah, plot twist. If anyone thought I was a large person,
little guy.
Just a little fella.
Well, I mean, standing next to me, you're a little guy.
Yeah, that's fair. You towered over me, but good team for doing boxes. We almost
well,
went on
that's
labor
the
strike.
problem is we got to find like a chassis size that kind of fits everybody.
It's kind of tough to do.
That's why I was thinking like 41 is slightly big for me, but if I got to scooch up a little bit in the seat, it's not that bad.
But if you got to scooch up, like I said, you're like average size, but there's definitely
we'll
I'm not the only one shorter than you. Okay.
Like they put those little pads with like the go-karts for little kids. We'll give you one of those.
Okay, thanks, man. Much appreciated.
Honestly, like I hope this works. I put a little 1,000-watt motor in it. It's probably like on my math, it should do like 30 kilometers an hour, but that should be fine for an off-road go-kart. Like if we want, I'm hoping that we can swap it out to like a 12 kilowatt motor later, and like that 12 kilowatt motor, that thing would rip. But
yeah, we definitely if you go to the 12 kilowatt motor, we're gonna have to put some more warning labels on these things.
Maybe like a roll cage at that point or something,
Yeah, something safer.
Just a little extra,
Yeah.
Different suspension system, maybe.
A lot of power.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to have a little suspension system at the back. The fronts, I'm not going to worry about because I'm mainly worried about connecting the batteries and seeing how the batteries work.
Back in my day, your suspension was your spine.
That's basically how this thing is going to end up. I feel like this thing is just going to be an absolute stupid thing to ride, but I think it's going to let me play around a little bit with like the electric throttle controls, and I kind of wanted to be like a Nikolai, who was worth $40 billion, could not deliver an electric side-by-side or like single-seater like go-kart quad to anybody. Tesla offered it for pre-orders, and you still can't get them for the adult version. So I'm like, fuck it, I can probably build one of these in the shop.
We're all for that mindset. We're just proving people wrong out here. That's the whole point.
Yeah, we are literally started this company because I wanted an electric quad. I'm like, when Tesla revealed, I'm like, oh, that thing would be sweet.
This is just everything's just spite.
Like 3-4 years. Do we have that? No, fine. I'll just build this myself too.
Yeah, spite orientated company.
We are 100% a spite orientated company.
It's like, why can't you do it? We'll just do it.
Right?
That's like the pictures of that truck we were talking about last night there. Like I was trying to figure out what chassis that was on from that Nikolai truck or Nikola.
Yeah, we found a Nikola cab over, but they just took like a MAN, like a MAN European truck, and like stuck one electric drive axle. Like, are you telling me you're a $40 billion company evaluation and your only prototype is something you stuck like? And I seen it, like the motor is just a Rawson, like it's just a Chinese axle that they stuck on there. Like, come on.
Okay, I'm confused. I thought Nikola was like they're still building. Like I thought with the whole lawsuits and everything, they dropped a bunch of stuff.
Well, they found out their truck. They just aired it up and pushed it downhill.
Yeah.
on their very first prototype, but that was like 3-4 years ago, and it took like people 2 years to find out that that prototype was fake. And in the meantime, in those 2 years, they kind of built a half-assed working prototype that's like a weird cab over thing that, like, dear God, I could build that like super easy in the yard without even the hybrid system.
Disclaimer for Edison, we're not gonna, film a video of the go-kart going downhill. Like, we'll make sure it's get an uphill shot in there too, right?
We'll just take it up to the top of the hill and roll her down.
Yeah. Look at her go.
Look at her buck.
Okay. I mean, honestly, let's be totally honest. This go-kart's a terrible idea, but it's gonna be fun.
No,
and it's not gonna cost that much.
See, the advantage is we're gonna make it scary, powerful. So even with the smaller motor, it'll still be quite a bit of juice for a little sketchy go-kart. So that gives you the adrenaline rush of just having a blast.
1,000 until I can figure out how the rest of it works. And I'm gonna see what 1,000. In my math, 1,000 should do like 25 kilometers an hour. That's not gonna be crazy. But like if it can do 25, like that's what an average go-kart does at like a rental place that you get. But then if we can get like a 12 or like a 20, then we could have some fun.
And then it's really scary, and people need it just for the scare factor.
Oh yeah, you should not be able to do this thing weighs like the frame is supposed to weigh like 60 pounds. Like a 60-pound thing should not be doing 130.
No, it shouldn't. That is not a good idea.
That sounds like a lot of warning labels that are going to be on there.
Yeah.
Oh, like I said, if we comes time to like, we're gonna need like a speed restrictor and like
yes,
like
I think that's the
it'll
safest
go like
play.
one wire in there that restricts the throttle. Like it'll go to a resistor, and you'll have to absolutely make sure that one wire, that one brightly labeled red wire that does the resistor for the speed, does not get accidentally cut or removed somehow, because then it could be super dangerous. And it might go to like 120 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
like
we'll put all the warnings on that it voids safety, voids warranty. If you cut this bright fluorescent wire that's right in your face, that even dangles on the ground a bit, don't cut that one, or you will have all the power in the world.
Just when you think you couldn't delete an electric go-kart, you just did.
We're just telling them.
Well, it's like what they did with the bicycles. Like you can have an electric bike in BC, but the electric bicycle is not allowed to do above 30 kilometers an hour, because it used to be back in the day where you could get sweet high horsepower electric bicycles. Like I remember my dad got one before the rule came in. That thing was sweet. I was traveling into town because I live like 10 minutes out of town. I was riding that thing at like 90 kilometers an hour down the road. It's on like a bicycle, like just flying it back and forth into town. I'm like, this is awesome.
No, I never
got another one. And then like a few months after that, they're like, hey, these things are like getting the same power as motorcycles now. You can't have a bicycle that does 140, guys.
Yeah, this
That's
is
stupid.
dangerous.
And you need to insure it as a motorcycle because it's. So they're like, oh yeah, all the throttle's been pinned back. And you're like, cool, can you delete it? And they're like, no, it's physically not possible. So like, I'm not saying we're going to, but if it happens to have a method where it's deleted via a series of restrictors, that if one person cut the wire, that would be really unfortunate for that person. And I do not recommend that they cut that wire. But also that'd be pretty fucking sweet.
Disclaimer said, good job.
But also,
anyways, I'm going to see what happens, because like we got another. That's a problem. We're waiting like another 3 months for the parts to arrive, and I'm like, I'm just okay. I've got all the stuff kind of shipped out now. We got like 200-300 packages left, and now I am waiting for parts. So I'm like, what if I just like I need to figure out the controls, how to hook up different gauges, and I'm like, I just need a simple vehicle I can test some of these theories out on. Check the AC to DC side, check some rectifiers at a smaller scale. I'm like, perfect. This is like a little tiny go-kart chassis, perfect to experiment on. And we can probably give it out to a few investors that they can try them out, give us some feedback on what they think the power and the torque should be.
For the investor video, I say we put Matt on it, because if it can haul Matt around, it'll be good. If it can put Matt up your driveway, it's good. It's good.
Could you imagine with me how much speed I get going downhill with that baby?
Oh, then we'll be able to test out that regenerative braking.
Matt and a go-kart that's 60 pounds. versus like a Prius or something, he's winning that.
But you know what? To go back and touch on what Chase was saying about that electric bike. In BC, a bicycle, like a pedal bicycle, falls under the Motor Vehicle Act here. So technically, your bicycle is treated as a car.
Yes, but you don't need a license or any kind of insurance to ride a bicycle, and that's why they restricted it. Be like, hey, the vehicles that don't have any bicycle insurance can't go above 30 under their own power.
We got in some chats though about BC, like your vehicle laws. There's just two here I can think of very quickly. Like your heavy equipment, for anyone on the other sides of the provinces, like where I am, you guys know this. We can get in a skid steer, drive down the road. That's fine. Like if you're plowing snow or anything, you get in the backhoe, you can drive down the road. That's fine. Loader, same thing. Like you can drive around town in a loader, backhoe, skid steer, don't matter. You guys need to plate everything. Also, your 4x4 trucks get taxed more because they're trying to reduce pollution, I think. But you're in a place where it's like raining, wet, snow, ice all the time, where you need a 4x4. Like you guys have ridiculous rules in there. I don't understand.
Yeah, welcome to BC.
Everything's voted
I
on in
honestly
Vancouver.
hate that rule that if you buy a 4x4 in BC, you pay a luxury vehicle tax because the 4x4 is heavier, and that's a luxury vehicle item. And then they're like, nobody needs these big 4x4 SUVs, and no one needs an F-150. And they're like, you don't need this four-wheel drive. And it's like, yeah, but you live in fucking Victoria on the island that hasn't seen snow in 6 years. And some of us are living way up fucking north in Prince George, or they're logging and they need it to get to work, or they live out in the bush, or they're farmers. And it's like the rest of the province, it's the most mountainous province. It gets tons of snow. And just because the rules are made by people that live on an island with no snow and sunny weather, they're like, yeah, the rest of you guys don't need 4x4 because we think it's really bad for the environment. We don't like people like these big 4x4s just aren't needed.
I was mad when you told me that. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
but hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but remember when air care was a thing, Chase?
No.
If you well, I guess in Merritt you never had that, but down here in the Lower Mainland, we used to have air care where you would have to bring your vehicle in for an emissions test. And, if it didn't meet emissions, you'd have to, go and fix it, blah, 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 blah. But you could navigate around that by, I've never owned a car. I've only owned my lightest truck has been a 3/4 ton.
Yeah.
But with my first truck, air care was still around, but I insured it for over 5,500 kg. So then I canceled out air care. So I wonder if that also got rid of that 4x4 luxury tax if you insured it over 5,500.
That there might be something to that, because every work truck I see out there is always like 1 ton to 3/4 ton, like bigger trucks. Like usually we over here have like tons of F-150s as work trucks. But you guys might get
with the
3/4 tons
luxury
instead.
vehicle tax in BC, it's cheaper to buy an F-250 or an F-350 than it is to buy like an F-150 some of the time because of the discounts, because it's a larger commercial truck.
That would make a lot more sense, because like I was wondering that, like for crew trucks, like you don't need to pull, like half the crew trucks don't pull trailers, they're just taking guys around. So over here, like F-150s is a common crew truck, but over there everyone has F-250s, F-350s, and wow, like these are bougie companies.
That's a perfect example of a government rule. They're like, hey, we're tired of these really big SUVs. You can't have them. You're like, hey, what about 1 ton trucks and like 3/4 ton trucks? We need them for work. They're like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. You need them for work. So someone that was going to buy like an SUV, like a Chevy Equinox, is all be like, okay, well, I guess I'll get a Chevy 3500.
Yeah.
Like it's cheaper now.
Like it's backwards thinking now. Yeah. That's so dumb, actually, because like, all these fleet trucks will ban all these F-150s or like the mid-range truck. Then let's get 1 tons instead. Like we're not getting cars.
Like we needed the 4x4, we needed a work truck, and like I get it. Like the luxury vehicle tax is only like $5,000, but if $5,000, $6,000 extra when you're looking at a vehicle and you're like, well, an F-150 is $60, or the car was $45, but now we put that tax on, it goes to $55. Well, why don't I just bring the little extra and get the 1 ton, because it's only $4,000, $5,000 more now to get a much nicer truck. Like you just shifted people into the bigger vehicles. That didn't make sense, guys.
I can promise you that extra $5,000 in tax wasn't going to our roads. I'll tell you that.
Man, don't complain about your roads.
They went and they put it into electric vehicle subsidies. So they put it in there and they're like, okay, we're going to subsidize electric vehicles and we're going to subsidize all these hybrids by taxing the big SUVs. So that was their plan, is like, we'll make the Teslas cheaper and make the SUVs more expensive because we want more people in like these little electric cars instead of these big gas guzzling SUVs. And it's like, that's cool, but it doesn't work for the rest of the province. It works good for Vancouver Island. You have an island that's 200 kilometers long. You can get one end to the other, like across the island on a charge. What are people going to be doing up here? Like the charging infrastructure. And like, we get back to the point that like EV infrastructure and electrical infrastructure isn't there. We still need the 4x4s.
Oh, I feel a tangent coming on here because this was one of the points I wanted to talk about.
Well, it's a good point. So spew away.
You know, and that was kind of what I tried to do in that director's meet the directors video. That
check us out on TikTok, Edison Motors. Sorry, I just got to drop that in there.
Yeah, no, I'll carry on now. Thanks, Jordan. And one of the biggest things I've noticed is, and I can't speak on other provinces, but in the last 6 months, I've been driving around to a couple different places in BC for work. And we push electric vehicles, you know, fully EV. We push it. The government pushes it with these subsidies. You know, you're getting pressure from your neighbor. You're getting pressure from your friends to, you know, reduce your carbon footprint, yada, 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 right? You know, Chase, you're up and down the highways all the time. You know, like, how am I supposed to take my electric car up the highway when we are just now getting to the point where, you know, in some of our remote BC highways, we're just now, within probably the last couple of months, just now putting charging stations there. You know, okay, so how long have fully electric vehicles been around now, and versus how long it's taken to put these public funded, you know, tax funded electric charging stations in. Okay, you know what? That's fine and dandy. We have them now. But how long has it taken to get there? And now you want to, you know, start pushing, you know, fully 100% electric trucks. Like, yeah, you know what? For your in town, you know, 5-ton cube van or you know, 5-ton cube vans and whatever, right? Sure, it would work. But even at that point, for a fully electric, you know, 5-ton, just doing your, you know, bumping docks all day long, do you really think that warehouse that you're picking up at is going to install truck chargers and start paying for your electricity to charge your truck? I really don't think so.
No, it would have to be like a dedicated customer account where you would have to pay for it. Or some of these city delivery trucks, you could probably put the range in it. Like a 5-ton truck, we could put enough range in it to make it a viable city delivery truck. You could. I guarantee you could on some applications where it charges up at this home terminal. It goes out, works its 10-hour day, comes back. That's probably fine. But like, one of the big issues, and like you touch on chargers, Ted, a heavy hauling fool, made a really good point in his video he made the other day, is that imagine truck stop parking. Now, truck stops are already a nightmare for long haul guys. Like, try and find parking at a truck stop overnight in anywhere in the lower mainland. You can't. It's so hard. The limited spots are all filled by 7 o'clock. Like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, you have to park on a back road somewhere. Like, you got to park in Chilliwack, Abbotsford, along a back road somewhere that you can find. Now, imagine that we put all these truck stop requirements that every single spot has a charging station for all the trucks to park in at night. Like, you have people that are like, hey, if I don't find parking at night, I don't have enough power to go the next day. It takes me 5 hours to charge a megawatt, 2 megawatts of power. It takes 5-6 hours. So if I don't make it into a truck stop at night to park in a designated spot with a charging station, I have to give up half of my wait in line for maybe 5 hours for the truck in front of me, and then park. That's 10 hours out of my day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just to charge as a lineup. Like, it won't work.
Well, no.
Hold on, Jordan. Hold on.
Okay.
But what you did instead was you bought an Edison truck.
Yes.
and you were smart about it. You saw what was going to happen in the future. You know what? You forecasted it. You bought an Edison, and while everyone else is waiting in line for a charger, you're in your bunk eating your craft dinner.
You're saving so much
Yep.
money. It's not craft dinner. You're eating Wagyu
Oh yeah,
steaks.
you're having Wagyu steak in the back for sure, right?
And I mean,
hey, no, it was my turn, man. It was my turn.
Okay.
I'll be quick.
I'll say your point, Jordan.
Because we all know this. I'm just saying for people out there, like we'll get to the electric point. Like it's coming, and if Edison might even be in a fully electric one day down the future, down the line. But there's this massive transition period that we don't want to talk about. That it like we don't have this, like maybe Vancouver, maybe around there they have some of the charging set up, but like we don't have the. What if all the trucks switch right now? Like we don't have the power in place to charge those trucks right now. Never mind, like what you guys are saying, stacking up. There's not enough room. There's not enough charges. Like that transition period is going to be a long time that they just seem to not want to talk about. And even when that transition period is done, we're not putting charging stations up in the mountains for the loggers. We're not putting them up north in some of these communities where no one like 100 people live. They're not all switching to electric within the next 15 years. That's not happening. Like these things are going to take time.
Yeah. And if we do start transitioning, I think that's the biggest advantage to an Edison truck is that, let's say battery technology gets to the point where we have like 10C rating on the batteries. Like right now we're at like 4C, which is like 4 times the capacity for discharge and charging. Let's say we get to 10C, we get super energy dense, we get charging networks in. If you have an Edison truck, it's literally as simple as you take that motor out, we'll put in some, instead of where that diesel generator is, we'll just put in a few extra batteries for you. Now you got 100% electric. Like all we have to do is remove the diesel generator, put in extra batteries, and it's done. It is now a fully electric truck. So like, because I want a truck that's going to last like that old 60s truck did. Where 50 years later, she's still on the road. Well, we start hitting 20 years from now, you bought an Edison, you're still trucking along, and you're like, oh, I probably should get fully electric. You take that generator out, place the generator to the side, drop your batteries in. It would be a one-day conversion to make an Edison truck fully electric. Or to even say, you know what? I want a diesel engine on standby. It's time for a rebuild. Instead of having like a C9 cat in there, let's just drop in a tiny little 4-liter C4 cat. It's got... we got 40, 50 kilowatts of power. I can turn it on and I can help boost my range if needed. We're going to massively downsize this to like, a 5.9 Cummins with a generator instead of like a 15-liter Cummins. You've got a 5-liter Cummins.
Yeah. Now with the battery shortages, we're going to be, if everyone's switching more electric, which is the way bigger companies will be going, and they will be going through these batteries after how many years? And until we have a new battery being made, like the lithium crisis is coming here, people, until they have something else, these people are going to be running through batteries, where with an Edison truck, you can stretch out your battery life because we're constantly charging. You might go down to the point where you could like what's realistic with a fully electric truck, Chase, like 8 years battery life, and then you should be replacing because you're going to lose so much travel.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like you got Tesla's making it like 7 years. City delivery where they're using like as a taxi scenario, they're getting like 5 years out of them.
With an Edison truck,
through multiple charges and discharges a day. Like they'll recharge like 3 times in a day.
Yeah,
like
when we hit that battery shortage, though, when that comes, if there isn't a solution and we hit a battery shortage, you can keep on trucking with the Edison truck. You're just going to rely a bit more on diesel fuel, which will still be around. But we can cover both angles. Like if we change up and go more electric, we can swap you, be done. We can't just swap you.
As
we can
the batteries deteriorate, you're looking at like 5-6 years where it's like, hey, we've only got 60% of our capacity in our batteries, 50% capacity. Super annoying for an electric vehicle. You're like, oh yeah, I used to be able to do 500 kilometers. Now I can do 250. Like these batteries suck now. It's not such a big deal with the Edison because that battery's just a peak load and it gets recharged. It's like, you know what? Like, who cares? We put in 200 kilowatt hours of batteries. Really, it's acting as like it's draining and twice the speed, but you've also got the generator keeping up, putting the power into it constantly. So it's not such a big deal. Like your peak load times, like, where you're going to be dumping 450 kilowatts. You used to be able to do that for half an hour for a big hill climb. Now, if you got a half-hour hill climb, you might have to reduce it to like 100, 250 kilowatts plus your generator power.
Well,
So it might reduce you like 20 kilometers an hour on a long hill pull, or after a 15-minute hill pull, you better be at the top kind of deal. But you're not gonna have to fully replace them if you're not feeling like spending 30 grand.
Well, my point with that is like with these owner operators, like it doesn't force your hand. Like, oh, we're going to a new year, we need these new batteries, or we can't travel as much and make that money. But I need a new trailer as well. Like, what do I do? This one, hey, buy that trailer. You're gonna have a few minor inconveniences throughout your year, but you can do another year or two of savings before having to replace your batteries. Like, we give you that lifetime.
Yeah, it's definitely not like if 100% electric when you deteriorate and you're like, you know what, I just can't complete my run anymore. Like,
yeah,
right at the limit of my battery had deteriorated 80%. Like, I'm past the limit of my battery. I can't no longer do my run without stopping midday. It's like, no, I just fire up the diesel generator, keep on trucking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I love it. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I definitely feel like we're the only ones in the EV world right now that seem to actually be addressing the elephant in the room that we just discussed of the, and I've heard you guys talk about it before, the lack of, just the electrical infrastructure to handle it, the lack of chargers,
Well, there was a guy, sorry to cut you off there, Matt, but I have to get this out. It was driving me mental. But there's a guy speaking on Joe Rogan the other day, and he was talking about like, oh, like we have all this stuff here. And Joe's like, well, what about the lithium shortage? He's like, no, like that'll just drive innovation. So it's like, oh, so there isn't a solution. No, we don't have a solution, but we'll come up with something because we'll drive, competition drives innovation. I'm like, you're right. Competition does drive innovation, but you're just admitting that there isn't a backup plan. It's like, hey, we're going full EV and we have the lithium shortage. Let's just figure it out. I'm sure we will, but at least we have something here. Like we have that meantime, we have that in between plan.
And I know you guys have touched on it, but that is not our ultimate goal as Edison. Is just here's your diesel electric hybrid, have fun, away you go. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we want to get to a fully electric point. Everyone does, right? We support that, but at the end of the day, we are stepping up to address the elephant in the room, and that the infrastructure is not there. The lithium shortage is going to be a thing, and when everyone else is parked, because they can't charge their highway tractor anywhere, then you'll see that Edison truck go flying by.
Yeah, just looking pretty.
I feel like we're crazy. Like, is there a crazy one here? We're like, no EV company is talking about grid infrastructure problems. They're not talking about battery degradation issues. They're not talking about the potential of lithium storage. They're not talking about the C rating on batteries. Like, they're not talking like they hyper fixate and be like, hey, we're getting charging times down. It's charging little. You're like, cool, okay, cool. But the grid infrastructure isn't there. And like, no company is talking about it because there's nothing these companies in their thing can propose to the market to be like, they don't want to talk about it. They want to ignore those issues because they have no solutions, because they can't be like, well, we need to massively change out the entire electrical grid and power generation. They're like, no one wants to talk about that.
Well, it's funny because now you see the world talking about, bringing nuclear back because we need this power source. So things are changing and they're going to happen. But it's just funny because I've had this conversation with someone, wasn't a doubter, but just asking questions like, hey, like all these big companies are going EV. Why aren't they worried about the things you're worried about? And it's like, they are so focused on getting the new EV tech. Like, they don't want to have the discussion of the lines in the ground, the lines in the air, all of these. If we're going full EV into these towns, they need to be bigger. Everything needs to change. Like, we're not crazy knowing that the infrastructure isn't there. Like, if you want to be a town that's all EV, like all electric, and towns like New York cities switching to electric, you need bigger cables bringing that power down. Like, everything needs to change. It can't just run on this system. So this is going to have to happen.
I'm not gonna name names, but I used to do some owner operator work on some, like I said, no names, but some of local power infrastructure here, and yeah, if you think we're ready, give your head a shake. We're not. It's and I ignorance is bliss, right? Oh no, it'll be fine. It's not going to be. And then, and then the flip side of this coin is, yeah, you know what? We're handing out all these subsidies for this EV vehicles, which it would, fine, whatever. Right. But who do you think is going to pay to, upgrade all the infrastructure? Who's going to, like the charging stations, who's paying for that? Like nothing comes free in this world. Right?
You say that, and like, it's sad how many people don't actually understand that. Like, the government will just pay for it. Do you understand where they get their money from?
Yeah. And by no means am I going to sit here and say that that's a waste of money. Absolutely not. That's not a waste of money. That's not what that is.
No, I don't think spending tax dollars on infrastructure is a waste of money.
No, we're not saying that yet.
We're just like, I feel like the crazy guy in the room saying this about EV companies, because as far as I know, we are like running a diesel electric hybrid is the only way to do this transition properly, to start bringing in batteries and mixing diesel and like your hedge, your bets. Either way, the efficiencies are there, the advantages of having diesel tanks and be able to charge, like everything is there. I get it. It's going to weigh an extra 2,000 pounds, but on a truck that weighs 145,000 pounds, that's not really the end of the world.
And you know what? That 2,000 pounds of extra tear and 2,000 pounds less of payload you can take, you're going to make way more than that in fuel savings, right?
Comparable to the diesels out there now.
Yeah. But what I'm saying though is, like, especially with our Canadian government and the way, the taxation on the fossil fuels work here, like something's got to give here pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Well,
how dare you speak
the
about
math.
the
Let's say
CCP
it's
like
not
this?
2,000. Let's hypothetically do a little bit of math, and let's say we add 4,000 extra pounds, like the entire weight of the batteries and everything all together, and the extra motors. Like that works out like 2,000 pounds. Now the going rate's about $4 a ton hour for logging right now. Now you can bring in, let's say, 2 extra tons at 4 tons is $8 an hour you lose, times your 14-hour day. It's $112 that you lose. Now, if you can take that fuel bill down from 500 liters a day, and right now it's $1.65 a liter. Let's say you're burning 500 liters a day. That's $825 per day.
Ooh.
Let's say the Edison truck has a 25% fuel savings times 0.75 for that. You brought that fuel bill from $875 to $600, so you save $300 in fuel. Your reduced tear weight on your truck and what you could deliver to the mill resulted in $100 less revenue on a 14-hour cycle day. Well, like that's a full hour day of trucking. So realistically, you're coming out still almost $300 ahead. Oh,
Boom.
sorry,
Quick math with Uncle Chase.
$240 ahead.
You've been math, boy.
So $240 ahead and an extra, 2 metric tons of weight onto a truck. 5 days a week times you work 50 weeks a year. So 300 times 5 times 50, $78,000 a year in fuel savings compared to the lost revenue of running in the less weight. Now, the Edison kit we're estimating is going to cost like $100,000 extra. So realistically, at $80,000 a year, that's 14 months payback, 1 year and 3 months payback period on running the electric drivetrain.
Now,
for
running
$100,000 retrofit.
The three of us having our own companies, that sounds like a really good investment into your company and into your company's future. Having an investment that pays back in roughly 14 months, obviously, industry dependent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of variables. It depends on which motors we go with and
or
which
even
we go
it
with.
being in Manitoba,
we don't
that fuel
have the
savings a lot
final
different.
thing. So right now, these are estimated costs. And I say that that's the fuel savings. We're yet to experience that. That is just what doing back of the math napkin calculations are going to be. I do have to say, there is some risks still here. And I hate giving hard numbers until we fully tested it, because the last thing I want to be is like Nikolai, who's like, yeah, we're going to reduce fuel bills by 80%. And this truck is 100% hydrogen. And then they're like, oh, yeah, but the truck doesn't actually drive because that truck is not physically possible. So I just want to hey, I want to say 100,000 Canadian. It could be up to 150 depending on which e-axles we go with. what puts it at like closer to a 2-year payback period, not the 14 months. So
what is it in the business profit? The business projections, like I think 3 years is a great business, but 5 years is a good business for paybacks. So we're still looking pretty good on that.
And I mean, you're also factoring in that like generators are way more reliable. Like they go up to 50, 60,000 hours, whereas a truck engine that's revving up and down.
Yeah, running
does
a
20
diesel
to
at peak
30,000.
efficiency, that is so much better for a diesel engine. So this thing, you don't got to worry about it. She going. Yeah, that brings your maintenance costs down so much more.
Better efficiency. Like we want a truck that you can get 20 years out of, 30 years out of, not 5 years to 10 years out of.
Yeah. So when we're in the apocalypse in 30 years, your Edison motor truck is still running. Boom.
Like I've got a little light tower. Don't ask me why. I do. It was one of those things where it's a deal. Anyways, nonetheless.
Is it diesel, Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man.
Look, guy. It was a last minute decision. Okay, don't worry about that. That's a technicality. All right.
All right.
But like, it's got the little 4-cylinder. I think it's a little 4-cylinder Isuzu, or not Isuzu. Sorry, Kubota, and it runs at 1800 RPM. That is it. You can't adjust that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those little light towers that run the little 4 kilowatt generators, whatever they are, 4 or 6 kilowatt runs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen one with like 18, 19,000 hours on it.
Even just the little diesels, yeah.
Yeah, just those little Kubotas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
They just keep on chugging.
Seriously though, they really do. And then, like my old gravel truck that I drove from the company I used to work for, it was a C15, it was an 05, so it had the twin turbo nonsense on there, right? But 20,000 hours, and that was it. $50,000 platinum rebuild kit from Inland.
Oh, gross.
$50,000 to rebuild that. That's for just a rebuild. That's insane.
Yeah, 50. Yeah. So if you go to Inland, right?
Wait, did you say 15 or 50?
No, 50.
Oh my God, that's expensive. Fuck
buy a new truck. Just buy a new truck.
And that's not even the 6NZ. That's just that goofy twin turbo trying to meet emissions, ACERT technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's just it. It's like, that's exactly why people go to the new fucking tech, because it drives me nuts. You look at the injectors on a new C15 Cat like that, you're looking at $1,500 an injector. You look at the injectors on an old Big Cam 400, or you look at the injectors on a 3406, you're about $80 an injector compared to $1,800. You could literally buy all 6 injectors, pay a mechanic shop rate at $150 an hour to change them out, and still walk away with $500 in your pocket compared to just buying one injector with no install cost.
Like my Cat 522B, it runs the C9, and it runs the Huey injectors, right? The hydraulic electronic unit injector.
Yeah,
those are not wallet friendly.
How much?
I you know what? I haven't even looked. I haven't priced them out yet because I quite frankly don't want to know. But I was talking to the mechanic there, and it's not the cheapest ones around.
Well, but just so everyone knows, we're using Cat as just an example. All new diesels are like this. We're just using Cat as an example because we all use Cat because Cat's the best engines out there, right? Quick cover, guys. Yep.
It is true. All the manufacturers. It doesn't matter whether you go to Detroit, Cummins, Caterpillar, or a goddamn Mercedes. Like it is all going the same way because they want you to buy a new truck every 5 years. Good job, guys. This plan of like, hey, everyone's going to come in. These trucks will last 5 years. We'll just keep rotating them through. We'll make tons of money out the parts for people who don't buy new trucks. Was going real good. It's not like the supply chain. Like it makes no sense the way that they structure these economies in the business. It's a just-in-time supply. It means like, hey, as we build these trucks, the parts are going to get here, and our some fancy, sophisticated supply chain networks, the parts will get here. Like the day of that we need the parts, rather than having a warehouse full of parts, the shipment will arrive. We'll take that, unbox it, put them directly in the truck, ship the trucks out. We don't need to carry a lot of inventory. That lowers our capex, and it looks way better on our financial statements. And you're like, no way could this system of just-in-time delivery massively fuck us up. there's no way that anything could slightly disrupt the supply chain, causing massive fuck-ups across all of North America, because we could save a few $1 million. Like, I see nothing, like, it drives me nuts that we went to such a throwaway economy where we buy a truck, use it, throw it away every 5 years, and now we're at the point where we're like, yeah, you can't get the parts for 2 years. Well, the trucks are still going to fail in 5 years because that's how you designed them, you dickheads.
Just because I want Caterpillar to sponsor this podcast, just a quick shout out, Finning, my boys at Finning, you order something before 7 p.m. and it'll be here 15 hours later on the truck from Spokane to Surrey, and bam, it's in your hand.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay, I saw this meme. It was like new diesel engines. You're 1 degree too low on my temp. I need to shut down. You can't hurt me. And then it's like Detroit diesel. I just threw a rod through the block. I'm gonna keep on chugging. Don't worry.
Or it doesn't have no oil left in it.
Yeah. It does it well. Even no oil. Like I know if you try to choke out a Detroit, like it'll suck the oil from the crank and it can burn off of that. Like it can run off of that. Like that is
really
yeah. Like it is ridiculous.
Oh, those old 2-stroke. Yeah, you're talking about the old
2-stroke. If you choke them out, they can run off the oil at the bottom of the engine. Like
honestly, it's so bad that you can stall out an old Detroit where it's like, I've stalled out. And then it'll fire up itself backwards in reverse. So it's just like, we're running in the reverse order now, and like first gear becomes reverse gear.
When I did my heavy duty mechanic pre-apprenticeship in Okanagan College in Kelowna, this goes back to like 7 years ago. We had an old Champion grader, and it had a Detroit 2-stroke in it.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I used to mess around with that thing. Like, I shouldn't have done it. But anyway,
the old Screaming Jimmys, good times.
Yeah, and it had a flapper as I don't know if it was the emergency shut off. I don't think it was the actual way to shut it off. But it was a flapper where you pulled the big red handle on the dash and it would cut the air.
Oh right? No, that is the way that those engines way back in the days, like the old Champion graders, were literally designed to shut off. Like they're like, nothing, because it's not electronic. There was not a single electronic. You can't just turn an electronic switch off, kill the power to the engine.
You choke it in it.
Once it's running, it's a mechanical fuel pump that's driven off of the engine. It's like nothing you can do can shut that engine off other than cut the fuel, which then you have to reprime the injectors, or you cut the air supply to it. But those are the only 2 options you have. Once that old Detroit's going, it's going until you literally choke it to death.
So that old Champion, the mechanical linkage there to close that flapper that was spring loaded, the spring was messed up, or I can't remember. There was something not right about it. Obviously, there's been a million kids going through there messing around with this thing, so it obviously ain't working right. Nonetheless, it doesn't when you pull that handle to shut her down, she wouldn't quite close, and so she'd be starving herself for air. And just because it was fun and it would blow black smoke, you'd go and punch, put her right to the rug and punch the throttle. And oh man, if David Suzuki was there, he would have fallen over.
I bet
you couldn't see anything for like 10 minutes after that. You might as well just go in the shop. Can't see nothing.
That sounds about
black
like
clouds.
Girls.
Or like when I used to work on a dairy farm when I was 17, and that was the first time I ever drove a truck. Actually, my first truck I ever drove was an old Volvo white cab over. And I never made it at a low range. But anyways, that's not the story. I remember the first truck I drove was an old Louisville with a Screaming Jimmy in it. I remember my boss coming up to me at the time and saying, when you get into this thing, drive it like you just close the door on your hand. And now you're really mad. And you just once again, right to the rug. Just wind her right up.
Oh, that is literally how I was. I was told to drive it like a pissed off teenager on those old 2.
Why do we all get told
different? $3,000 and drop it, Jake shift, slam it down, and then just hammer down. Like that's literally what those engines like. They're like, I feel it. An old Detroit is just a kinky bitch. Well, that is all it is.
She just loved it.
Fucking abuse me. I love it. Fucking hit me. Like you're like, oh my god. Detroit.
Well, I was probably 7 or 8, and my dad and me hopped in an old Louisville, and the guy who came by and, hey, this is his truck, take it off for us. Same thing, just drive it like you stole it was his thing. I love how we all had a different one for it, but this one was drive it like you stole it, foot to the rug, just go, and that's how she went.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've heard that from everybody. I literally think that was probably in the owner's manual where it's like, hey, I see you're buying a Detroit. Make sure you beat the fuck out of our engine because, like,
it'll run better.
Like,
yeah, just hold her right to the rug.
Shit. She loves it.
Yeah. Okay, it's getting late, Matt. Toby here, so we're gonna start wrapping things up.
Oh yeah, sleepy time for the little guy, eh?
It's big.
We didn't even get into Ukraine. Like, I thought at least you wanted to talk about Ukraine.
Matt, we are not talking about politics.
Hold on, time out. I'm on the Ukraine, World War III TikTok right now. It's fire. You might want to get onto it. It's fucking nuts.
I haven't even had time to look at Ukraine World War III
it's
TikTok.
crazy.
I'm just gonna give the boys some advice out there for you single guys out there. Go on Tinder, pay for the premium, whatever it is. Put your location in Ukraine. You might have to pay for a plane ticket, but you're gonna be real happy. You get your pickings of what you want right now. Just fly them over.
My god, that's the worst dating advice I ever heard. You're like, I will buy a plane ticket out of Ukraine. Oh, there's no planes out of Ukraine, but still, like.
No, you'll get a girl over, and you get your pickings right now, boys.
Oh my god, I read an article today that there's an issue of like girls are reporting and like showing the pictures online of like Russian soldiers as they're invading Ukraine on Tinder in Ukraine trying to pick up Ukrainian girls. And it's like, oh my god.
Yes.
Like, hey,
terrible.
I'm gonna invade your country. Next your bedroom. Like, what kind of pickup line could you use on that?
Classic.
That's not the worst. Very bold power play move.
Like, that is a power play move.
Yeah.
Really go in there and show him who's boss,
You think you're in the handcuffs? How about AK?
Oh my god.
Terrible. No, I don't want to get into Ukraine because last time our podcast got political, everybody got mad.
Oh yeah. Fair.
Don't look at me.
No, not you, Matt. You were like good.
Troll. Like, we got a couple. Like, who are we gonna do? Be like,
I'll get a call from Putin. I'll get a call from Putin.
And I don't think Putin's listening to blue collar interviews and be like, "Fuck you guys! I wanted to invade Ukraine because back in the Soviet days, that was mine."
I like the memes about all the memes about like it'll be someone getting like really upset or mad like Putin right now when he sees all the 14-year-old white girls telling him to get out of Ukraine.
Oh,
so good. Okay, what's the wrap-up question for
go
Matt?
Check these memes out. Let's wrap it up. I want to see some World War.
I was gonna do a dream job for Matt, but like I feel like Matt's living his best life. Like I don't know.
You know what? Honestly, I was thinking you were gonna ask me this, and the answer is doing what I'm doing now. I love it. It's my passion. I love every bit of it. Honestly, like it's.
I was gonna say like meeting you and everything. Like Matt seems to love what he's doing, so I assumed you were doing your dream job. You're crushing it.
Well, I can tell you, if you didn't love it, would you be miserable?
Fair.
That goes for any work, and no matter what you do, if you don't love it, you're gonna be miserable.
Mm-hmm. And we saw that when Matt was boxing. No.
Oh yeah, I was in there, man. I was, I was offered Chase, to come by my clinic next weekend. I'll show him how to do it, right? But if I wasn't a part of everything else, I'd have a different answer, but I'm keeping it professional.
Okay.
Would have a different answer.
You'd be a prostitute.
Well, like a Ron Jeremy,
Oh, okay. Well, all good.
Like that.
We're wrapping it up though. Jordan's going to bed.
All right. Good night, Jordan.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Okay, guys, have a good night.
Yeah, sleep well.